Recently, I did a video in which I discussed the reasons why some of my FE Electrical and Computer exam students who are enrolled in my FE Electrical and Computer exam preparation course were not able to take the FE exam in the year 2021. 2022 has just started, and I reached out to my FE Electrical and Computer exam preparation students and asked them how they were doing, whether they had taken the exam or not. As I mentioned in that video, most of my students do report back to me once they take the exam and pass the exam, and we start discussing the next stage, which generally for most of the students is the PE Power exam preparation. So after that video, some of my PE exam students reached out to me, and PE Power exam preparation students, and they asked me to do a similar video on this topic where I can go over the reasons why some of the PE Power exam preparation students have not been able to take the PE Power exam in 2021. Before we dive into the content, I would really appreciate if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and please click the bell icon if you want to be notified whenever a new video is added to this channel. So if you watched that video that I referenced early on regarding the reasons why students were not able to take the FE exam in 2021, the very first reason I gave was that students got busy with their full-time work. Now, surprisingly, this reason is even more pronounced for the students who are planning to take the PE Power exam. And the main cause for that is that individuals who are taking the PE exam are much more advanced in their career. They're generally between 5 to 10 years, sometimes 10 to 15. And I also have students in my PE Power exam preparation course who are upwards of 20 years out of school. So as you can imagine, these individuals are at much more senior roles and they have a lot more responsibility. So for them to take time out of their busy full-time work becomes even more challenging. So what is the cure? The cure is the same that I mentioned in the earlier video, that you should have an open discussion with your manager, with your supervisor, and tell your manager, especially when you are about to take the PE Power exam, tell him or her that you're just one step away from becoming a professional engineer, from getting your PE license. And as I explained earlier, for employers, it is a lot more attractive and it makes a lot more sense for them to groom people within their team, help them advance their career, get these credentials, because it's much more expensive and even risky for them to get somebody completely new who doesn't have that track history of delivering projects, meeting the deadlines, and contributing to the team as you would have. So if you can attain your PE license, become a PE license holder, and add value to your team, it is a lot more valuable and makes a lot more sense for your employer as well. So have that open discussion and try and see if there's some wiggle room in terms of adjusting your responsibilities, your projects, or sometimes even getting an extra hour at work for preparing for the exam. Now, most of my students who are preparing for the PE Power exam are enrolled in my PE Power exam preparation course, which is on demand, and they are able to basically go through the lectures, go through the quizzes, either on their cell phones, on their computers, on their laptops, on their tablets, and so on. So it gives them a lot of flexibility. So if you are able to have that open discussion, you might be surprised as to how accommodating your supervisor could be. The second most common reason that my PE Power students give for not taking the exam earlier in 2021 is that they had to go on site. Now, these guys and girls who are taking the PE Power exam are obviously power systems engineers, and as you know, that within the power systems engineering domain, depending on what type of role you have, there can be a lot of field work. There can be commissioning, there can be equipment startup, there can be factory acceptance testing in different areas and different factories, and you could have meetings at different locations, on-site locations. If you're going through a construction project, it would take a lot of your time on site. You might be doing some field supervision. So that is the second most common reason, and you would probably think that it's the same as the full-time job, but it is very specific. Like, this particular reason comes up quite frequently. So what is the cure? Well, the cure is that, based on my experience and talking to a lot of students, the site work typically involves excessive hours, generally 12-hour days for 5 days, 6 days, and then you have 3 or 4 days off. Especially if you're working in oil and gas industry, especially if you're working offshore. In fact, they have even much more aggressive schedules, like 1 week of straight hours and then half a week or an entire week off. or maybe 2 week on without any break and 2 weeks off. Now you have to, with this type of schedule, you have to be a little bit creative. Obviously, it would be impractical to expect that you'd basically be able to, study after 12 or 14-hour shift. But what I'd recommend students is to have the NCEES PE Power Reference Handbook accessible to them so that even when they are not studying, so if it's a very tough day at work and you know that you're going to be dead tired when you go back to your hotel or to your home and you really won't have any chance to study, then at least 15 minutes, at least 20 minutes spend during your lunchtime or any type of downtime that you get to look at the PE Power Reference Handbook. And this is a recommendation I've given to a lot of my FE students as well, that if it is one of those days that you know that there's no chance that you're going to be able to study, then at least open the handbook. Now for the PE Power, as you know, the exam recently changed to computer-based closed book, and it also has its own reference handbook. So you should spend at least a little bit of time every day looking at that handbook, especially on the days where you know that you're not going to be going through the lectures, you're not going to be going through the full-blown exam preparation. So what it will do for you is that it will make sure that you stay in that momentum, you keep that momentum, and you're able to sort of retain some of the knowledge. It's still at the back of your mind, and when it is the day, when it's an off day, when you have a break, and when you're fully diving back into the exam preparation mode, then you're able to pick it up very quickly. So you don't have to overcome that inertia that you will encounter if you completely drop your studying. So this is a tip that works for a lot of students. And the third reason why students who had initially planned to take the PE Power exam and they were not able to take the exam in 2021 is their personal commitments. Now, everyone's situation is different. I've had some students who unfortunately had some deaths in their family. I had some students last year who went through medical conditions, and with COVID around, still there's a lot of uncertainty. So unfortunately, that is something that we still have to cope with. It's just part of being human. It's part of life. It's part and parcel of life. The way to deal with that, again, depending on what the situation is, it can be very difficult. Now, if you have things that are just getting busy because your kids are at home, online schooling, you are starting to have a lot of social commitments, I would say that in that case, if things are relatively stable, have an open discussion with your family, with your friends, and let them know that for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, however long it will take you to prepare for the PE exam, that you're going to sort of scale back a little bit on your social activities. And the best way to do that, as I mentioned in an earlier video, is to develop a routine. One of my students with young kids, the only time that he was able to extract out of his daily schedule was between 11 p.m. at night to 1 a.m. in the morning. And this student of mine who went through my FE electrical and computer exam preparation course and the PE Power exam preparation course, passed both the exams like many other students in the first attempt. I mean, that was the only slice of the day, or actually night or midnight, that he was able to get for his studying. And he sticked with that particular time slot for 6 straight months in order to prepare for his PE Power exam. Now, once you have a routine established, you will see that people around you will start respecting it if you actually respect that routine. So it is something that has worked for me, that has worked for a lot of my students as well. So develop a schedule. Don't keep it floating. Don't keep on thinking, imagining that you're somehow going to find an hour and then you're going to start studying. That inertia, that friction that I talked about earlier, it is a very powerful force, and it will lead you down to the road of procrastination if you don't tame it, if you don't overcome it. And the best way to overcome it is by sticking with a schedule. So talk to your spouse, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your kids, and let them know that, hey, you know what, this time slot, only 1 hour, only half hour, during the weekdays, during the weekends, I want to carve it out for myself so that I can get done with this exam. And, as an incentive, maybe arrange some sort of gift for them. Maybe tell them that once you're done with this exam, it's a challenging exam, you're going to take them out for a vacation. You're going to get this new gadget that they've been waiting for. So get a buy-in from everyone who's around you and make it a sort of a team effort. You will have a higher likelihood of getting this challenging exam done if you have a support network around you.